Okay, so here we are, Light from the Leshem. This is a Torah class called Light from the Leshem. We will be teaching authentic Kabbalah teachings from the Torah on topics concerning the divine workings of our reality. It's under the auspices and guidance of Rav Yeshua Gerzi of the Pilsner Shul of Beit Shemesh. And we'll be discussing basically philosophical topics, as presented by Rav Eliashiv, or known as the Leshem, from his writings. Using translations of, let me make sure my phone's turned off as well. I forgot about that business. 1 second, sorry guys. Okay, phone is off. And so we'll be discussing these topics from a translation of the writings which I've done, which has a committee that also reviews them. So any comments that you have are welcome, and you can also write me, and at the end we'll mention the website and all that stuff. Great. Okay, so let's begin. So today's topic in the next several classes, probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 classes, is about the intention and end purpose of creation. Why did God create the world, the Kitzur? And to bring about the actualization of his names is the answer. And what does that mean? We'll see as we discuss it further. We want to discuss that the purpose of the world is to bring about the actualization of God's name. So the first part, today's class right now, we're going to try to divide each class into 10 to 15 minute segments so that you can watch them at your leisure without having to pause too much. So the first lesson today is going to be an overview of the lesson. Article 1, to bring about the actualization of his names. And this is from the Book of Clarifications, or also it's known as Biorim, and it's a commentary on the essays of the Ari, the Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, of blessed memory, who from his book The Eitz Chaim, which is basically a compendium of the Kabbalistic material that most of the Kabbalah that we know as classic Kabbalah is based upon today. To go into that in more depth is not really what this class is about, but if you feel you need background, there's lots of material on the internet on the Ari. Look up the Ari, Rabbi Isaac Luria, and the Eitz Chaim, and you'll be able to catch up on that issue. Okay, beginning now. Welcome aboard. This article is from a series of articles describing the reasons why God decided to create all of existence. Important question, what are we doing here? Comprehending the Creator's intended purpose and awaited outcome for desiring, designing, and implicating all of existence, not surprisingly, has many aspects. This particular article will be discussing the purpose of creation from the aspect of God enabling the rectification and actualization of his divine names. Okay, so now the introduction goes like this. We're going to ask the question today, basically, and you have time to think about it, and the next class, which will be coming out pretty much right away, we will begin to get the answer to these questions. 3 questions. This article examines God's ultimate intention for establishing his creation. What was the Creator, blessed be he's intended purpose for causing all of his creation to come into being? In order to achieve this, the Leshem first presents us with the seemingly primary contradiction. It's a contradiction to why God created the world. Did God establish his creation because he actually has a need for his creation? This is a big question. Does Shem need the creation? Now, some of you might be familiar with Rabbi Manis Friedman. If not, look him up. His big thing is he's always going on saying that God needs us, and he created us because he needs us, because he created us because he needs us. That's what he winds up saying, basically all of his. Now, I'm not on any level to be having any contradictory discussion with someone on that level, but just to let you know that the Leshem will present an alternative answer to what he's saying there, which in the answer is basically sort of. And we'll see in the continuation. So because basically, as the second bullet point says, since God is completely perfect in every manner, how can his creation serve any purpose in furthering his perfection? God's already perfect. What does he have any need for anything more than himself, because everything's already perfect without the creation? Okay, so now if that's the case, so you have to ask an even deeper question, which is, since his creation cannot be for the purpose of furthering his perfection, what purpose then does creation serve? What then is God's intended purpose for the creation of all existence? So we go back to the original question. It can't be that God needs in any way, shape, or form his creation. So then why did he create the world if it's not to serve any purpose for him? So this analysis begins with the Leshem quoting from the beginning of the Eitz Chaim. As we mentioned, the Eitz Chaim is basically the main work describing the upper worlds by the Arizal, by Rabbi Isaac Luria. And this source seems to imply, and we're going to quote that source, the Leshem will quote it and then discuss it. It's basically a commentary. This piece is a commentary on this piece of the Ari, where the Ari brings up this concept. This source implies that creation serves to further the actualization and completion of God. And as we said, that cannot be. It states that the reason that God created the worlds was in order to manifest his potential into actualization. This is explained as a function of the realization or realizing the completion of his names. So Hashem is going from some sort of potential to some sort of actualization, and that's the reason he created the world, to complete his names. The Arizal further explains here that God, for example, cannot be called merciful, right, or the king, or the judge, things like that. How could he be called that if he doesn't have anybody to be merciful to, or he doesn't have anybody to be the king over, which is summarized in the well-known Hasidic phrase that probably many of you have heard, which is, there cannot be a king without a people. How can there be a king if there's no kingdom? So we're going to dive deep into this question. Is it possible for there to be a king without a people? What does it really mean? Why did God actually really create the world if it's not to serve his own needs? Okay, are there any questions now? That's it for today. We'll have any questions, and then we'll continue on with the answer next time. Any questions?
Yeah. First of all, thank you. It's a real pleasure and joy being, part of this.
Great.
And my question is, when the sentence in the last paragraph that this is explained as a function of realizing the completion of his names, I'm wondering if that question is if that explaining what that means, I guess, in a more, I guess it seems very abstract. I'm wondering if what we're learning is going to delve into explaining that phrase specifically. Even
you really actually caught the idea exactly. Yes, basically, when we explain what completion of Hashem's names means, it has an effect of making giving a solution to this philosophical question. In other words, completion of his names, and I'm going to wait to say it in the next class so we see it inside in the text itself, is basically completion of his name somehow is the reason he created the world, but it still does not add to his perfection. And we will see that in the text itself. And then once we've seen the text, we summarize it. We can try to discuss it in what we call more common language, so it becomes even more clear and understandable. So that's it today. Thank you so much for coming. And I just have to figure out how to turn this thing off. I suppose if I go up here and I hit record. No. There's that.